Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Don R. Balili, an high school teacher from Palar Integrated School. So today, I'll be discussing about the cause of pandemic today, which is the coronavirus COVID-19. To provide the proper information that we need to know about this virus and how can we prevent it. So before I discuss the coronavirus itself, let's have an introduction about the virus. So what is a virus? So it is a genetic material contained within an organic particle that invades living cells and uses their host metabolic processes to produce a new generation of viral particles. Since it is only a genetic material, we can describe it as a non-living that is only contained within an organic particle. And it uses its host. So what is a host? So this is the victim of a virus that supports the living of a certain virus, or the function of the virus to produce a new generation of viral particles. So generally, they are much smaller than bacteria and they lack the capacity to thrive and reproduce outside of a host body. So without the host, it cannot survive. In general, they are parasitic in nature. So what is the structure of the virus? So the virus contains the core, capsid, and envelope. So the core, it has a genetic material. It can be a DNA or RNA. So when you say DNA, it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA is a ribonucleic acid. So DNA, it is responsible for storing and transferring the genetic information, while the RNA, it is responsible for decoding the instructions from DNA to the other parts of the cell, or it can act as a messenger between the DNA to the ribosomes to produce proteins that can make the cell function. So that is the function of the DNA and RNA. So capsid, it is a protective coat that surrounds the core that is made also of protein, and envelope, this can be a spiky coat that surrounds the capsid. So for you to know the appearance of this structure, let's have these examples of viruses. So viruses comes in variety of sizes and shape. So we have these 4 examples of viruses. So we have tobacco mosaic virus, adenoviruses, influenza viruses, and bacteriophage T4. So in the tobacco mosaic virus, it has a rod shape and it has a capsid outside. Then adenoviruses, it has a polygon shape that has a glycoprotein spikes on each sides. And the surrounding the DNA, it is called as the capsomere. Then influenza viruses, it comes in circular shape that has an envelope, and the capsid is inside and RNA and has a glycoprotein spikes all around the influenza virus. While the bacteriophage T4, it has a complex capsid that contains the head and the tail. So head is the one that carries the genetic material, and tail, it is the virus that used for its movement. So how does a virus works? So when the virus attached to the living cell, it will release the RNA. So how does it attach? By the use of their capsid. Since the capsid and the cell membrane is made of protein, it can easily enter the cell. So when the RNA enters, it invades the cell nucleus and takes over the cell activities. The next, after that, the viral RNA uses the host cell to create new RNA and assemble more viral particles. Then eventually, when the new viral particles are released, sometimes it destroys the cell in the process. So that's how the virus works. So from single viruses, it can create more viruses to infect more the cells. So that's how the virus works. So in comparing the virus to the other infections, just like a bacterial and fungal infections, in treatment, they are different in terms of treatment. For bacterial infection, it uses the antibiotic medication, antifungal for the fungal infection, and antiviral or sometimes none for the viral infection. And antibiotics only works on the bacterial infection and doesn't work on the fungal and the virus since they have own treatment. And vaccines can only exist for the bacterial infection and viral infection and not many for the fungal. So for example, in the bacterial infection, it is treated with penicillin for the staph infection, so ringworm treated by miconazole, influenza treated by Tamiflu, or we call it as oseltamivir. So that is the short introduction about the viruses. So we will now go to the coronavirus itself. So what is a coronavirus? So coronaviruses are a large family of viruses which may cause illness in animals or humans. And they can cause respiratory infections ranging from common cold and more severe diseases. So there are 3 types of coronaviruses that causes severe diseases. So we have a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, or we call it a SARS-CoV, that was first identified in China year 2003. Then we have a Middle East Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus, or MERS-CoV, first identified in Saudi Arabia year 2012. And lastly, the current virus, which is the novel coronavirus, or we call this the nCoV-19, that was originated from Wuhan, China last December 31, 2019. So what is a novel coronavirus? So we will discuss it later on. So these are the structure of the coronaviruses. So why these viruses are called coronas? Because of their crown-shaped spikes. Also, corona means crown in Italian. So they both have RNA inside and glycoprotein spikes in structure. So but in the coronaviruses, they are origin in the range in animals. So MERS-CoV came from the camels, SARS-CoV from civet cats, while the nCoV 2019 remains unknown since it is only recent virus. And when these viruses transmitted to the human, it is now called a spillover in the range of factors such as the mutation. So mutation is changing the DNA strand that makes a person a disability or any other infection. So that is a mutation. So novel coronavirus. Again, this is a new strain of coronavirus that previously not identified until such time that there is a severe pneumonia, several cases in China, and then become pandemic due to the exported of its virus to the countries and other cities. And last February 12, 2020, the World Health Organization announced that the novel disease is now officially called as coronavirus disease 19 or COVID-19, and the virus is the COVID-19 virus. So how does COVID-19 spread? So when the person talks, sneezes, or coughs, it releases a droplet in the form of saliva. So when this saliva contains this COVID-19 virus and inhaled by the person, that is now the transmission of this virus. So it is important that we need to stay away from the person who are coughing and sneezing for you to us to avoid this virus with at least 1 meter in distance. So what are the signs and symptoms of COVID-19 when you get infected by this virus? First, when you have a temperature then higher than 37.5 degrees Celsius, eventually you will have a fever, cough, sore throat, or sneeze, muscular pain, short of breath, fatigue, and chest pain. So the question is there a treatment and vaccine for COVID-19? So as of now, there is no specific treatment or vaccine against COVID-19. However, many of the symptoms can be treated based on patient's clinical conditions. So if the immune system of the patient is strong, it can survive and recover. But eventually, for the severe cases, that is the consequences. So only supportive care for the infected person is highly effective. So most of those infected are recovered with only supported care from the doctors and nurses. And the vaccine and the specific drug treatments are currently being developed and tested through clinical trials. So that is now the only update of the vaccine. So since there is no vaccine or specific treatment, what can we do to prevent the spread of COVID-19? So the effective is frequently wash your hands with soap and running water when hands are visibly dirty. So if your hands are not visibly dirty, frequently clean them by using alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. So when do you wash your hands? So after you cough or sneeze, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare your food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste, since the soap is effectively kills the virus. Then another ways, when you cough or sneeze, you have to cover your mouth and nose with flex elbow or tissue. So when do you use tissue, you have to throw it in a closed bin after the use, and eventually you will sanitize yourself using your hand rub sanitizer or can be a soap and water. Then avoid close contact when you are experiencing cough and fever. Avoid spitting in public o pagdudura. So since spitting, when you spit the droplets, yung dura natin, or saliva, it can be a carrier of the disease. So we need to avoid spitting in public. So if you have a fever, cough, and difficulty in breathing, you have to seek medical care early and share the previous travel history with your healthcare provider to track easily the other persons who are infected by this virus. If you want to know more about the COVID-19 virus, you have to go to the website of World Health Organization and Department of Health and other reliable sources. So thank you for watching and keep safe everyone.